The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Jillian Schaefer and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Sage 100 Budgeting Tools, presented by Bruce Kern of SWK Technologies. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. To submit a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees as well as to those who registered but were not able to attend. Please take a moment at the end of the presentation to answer our one survey question. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you software and industry knowledge, tools, and support whenever you need it. So whether you're here doing research for a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels. So we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Bruce.
Thanks, Jolene. Could you give me that prompt for the screen share again, Jolene?
Yeah, of course. There you are.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. So we're going to talk about budgeting, popular topic here around year-end time. I'll give you kind of a little preview of what we intend to cover here. We're going to cover some setups in the Sage General Ledger as it pertains to the budgets. We'll get into some of the budgeting features. We'll work our way up from kind of simple stuff to things that have a little bit more functionality to them. We'll talk about reports that have budgets in them. We'll also create or talk about creating your own reports with budget data in them. And then last but not least, we'll see if we can talk about ways of automating the budgeting process through importing. A couple different ways of doing that, and everybody who has Sage 100 has at least one way to import budgets. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started on talking about setups. So here in the General Ledger, in Sage 100, there's a setup menu, and we're going to go ahead and just pop open these General Ledger options, and we're going to navigate right over to this number 3 budget tab. This is where the settings are. Not a lot going on here as far as complications in terms of setups. Sage keeps track of budgets by a budget code. That's a 10-character code that you see in the left column there. It comes with the original and revised. Those 2 budgets cannot be deleted. They are part of the design system. However, other budget codes that you might create can be deleted if they don't have any dollars in them. So if there's a budget code that has dollars in it, then you have to get rid of those dollars first if you do want to delete it. Now, if you wanted to add a new code, it would be just as simple as typing a new code. So if I type Plan B here, for example, that would be the start of entering a new code, and you have pretty much unlimited number of codes. So you don't need to create new codes necessarily. So for example, you see that one of the budget codes we have is original. So Sage will allow us to create a budget through a budget code, but it also tracks it by the year. So we could have original 2020, original 2021, 2022, etc. We don't have to create a new budget code for every single year for every kind of budget we might want to create. Okay. Now, one of the budget codes can be set as a default budget. So you can see there that the original is the one that's currently flagged as the default. So that just means that on applicable reports that we'll be taking a look at, that will come up as the default budget, and then we'll be able to change that if we need to. You have the option of selecting this checkbox at the bottom to copy the actual to the default budget at year end. That means when you perform the act of year-end processing, not magically at January 1st. All right, that's pretty much it. So you can add your budget codes here. You can delete the ones that don't have data in them as long as they're not one of the original two, the original or the revised. Now we're just going to kind of move into account maintenance, which is where some more features dealing with budgets are. So under GL main, we have the account maintenance. And I'll just pull up an income account here. Most often the budgeting gets done on income statement accounts. So we're going to focus on those for today. Now what we'll do here is we'll go over to the variance tab, tab number 3. And in here, what we want to point out is that we've got some good budget information. So, you know, we've got the fiscal year here. Obviously, that's going to tell us what time period of information we're looking at. But over here, we have this column where we can change the information, and you can see that one of them is budget information. So there's our 3 budgets that we have defined. If we wanted to switch that up, we would just change that. So that's one place we can get to this budget activity right off the bat. That's not a place where we can change the budget activity, but we can certainly see it there. Now, something that some people don't know about this screen, which is worth a quick mention, is if you right-click in here, there's an export to Excel. So because it is a grid screen itself, it tends to export very neatly. So if you wanted to see that in Excel for some reason and work with it there, you could do that. Now, it doesn't really matter what tab we're on, whether it's, you know, any of these 4 tabs. Across the top, you know, we have the base screen that underlays all of this, and on any of that, we can see the budget button. So it doesn't matter what we, you know, what tab we're on, we can get to this budget button. So if we click that, now it's going to open up the budget maintenance screen. So let's talk about this a little bit. So it opens up with the account that we're on. But watch this. I can actually move this forward to any other accounts I want. And as we'll see here in a minute, we're going to be able to actually do work on the budgets here. So, you know, if you do that, make sure you remember kind of where you came from, that you don't lose track, because it does let you kind of move through that way. This icon here, that's kind of the little notepad icon, that's the memo icon. That's the same memo icon that we have on the main GL account. It's just another way to access it right from the memo screen. So it's not a memo specific to the budget, although you could certainly make a memo for a budget. Now down here on the left, let's talk about a little bit about these things. Now you can just click into any lighted up cell if you want and change the figure. So if I click into here, into the original budget period 1, and I type a number, it'll just take the number. So you can just type in there, nilly-willy, all you want. Now in this case, this is a revenue account, so I typed in a positive number and it flipped it to a negative sign. That in accounting means it's a credit. Positive revenue is represented as a credit. That is not negative 15,000 in period 1. That is actually representing a credit or positive revenue for you accounting types out there. Now let's talk a little bit about these buttons along the side here. So select budgets. Right now you can see we've got 4 columns of data in there, but I can control what 4 columns of data that I'm going to see here depending on what's useful for me in this process. So I'm not going to save my changes. Here's where I'm controlling what I'm seeing. So if I want to work on the 2025 budget for original, I'm going to keep that. Maybe I don't care about the actuals, or maybe I don't care about the revised. So I'm going to take the activity for 2025 out, and maybe I'll take the revised budget out as well, just for grins. And now here I am with, you know, what I asked it to bring forward. I'll move it forward one account has a little bit better data. So that's all that button does. This is just, you know, select budget, determines what you're seeing in that screen. It's that simple. Okay, let's see here. Next button here, calculate budget wizard. So I could click this guy here and I could kind of go into a wizard driven type of a thing. So I can say, okay, here's my 2025 original budget. And, you know, maybe I'm going to affect only periods 9 through 12. What do I want it based on? You know, you can choose budgets or actuals there. And then, you know, do I want to do some sort of math to this itself? So maybe I'm just going to copy the budget or activity, or maybe I want to do one of these other options. So I'm just going to hit next, and then I'll hit finish. And in this case, what I did is I told it to copy the actuals to the 2025 budget from 2024 for the periods 9 through 12, and it appears to have done that. All right, so a little calculation wizard there. Now, if I want to clear the budget, I can certainly do that. Depending on if I had other budgets in here, so if I had the revised budget would also show in there. And if you want to clear it, you just check the box and hit proceed, and it will wipe it out. It's an all or nothing click to wipe it out. Then at the very end here, we have reset the last budget cell or reset all budget cells. So, you know, that means since the last time you clicked the accept button. So accept in Sage is kind of like save. So once I've clicked accept, it's going to forget and start over. Now let's see here. Now this is also, because it's a green screen, also has an export. And we'll also mention here that there's some related tasks with a right click on your mouse. There's 3 budget reports that kind of come out of the system. You can see those there. We'll take a quick look at those later in this presentation. Okay. Whoops, let's get out of that. All right, let's talk about budget maintenance. So here we were under General Ledger Main Account Maintenance, and we had full access to the GL account, all of its transactions. We'd be able to change that GL account. We could even, you know, set it to inactive, do other things that maybe we shouldn't do if we don't have the authorization. So under the budget menu here, we have budget maintenance. So when this screen opens up, you'll notice that it's the exact same screen we were just in. So you might be asking yourself, why do they have this separate? The reason it's separate is because it doesn't have access to any of that other information, just kind of summary information. So I wouldn't be able to drill into specific transactions. I wouldn't be able to change any of the elements of how the GL account was set up, make it inactive or anything like that. I could still see activity or actuals in here, but it's summary. Okay, I don't have any ability to drill down in it and, you know, go poking around the general ledger to see, you know, what vendors got paid what monies or any other things that maybe I'm not supposed to have as the person doing the budgeting. So the reason this is here, it's just another access point to control viewing of the budgeting features, but without access to some of those other information. All right, automatic budget copy. Now, everything we've done up to this point has just been instantaneous. As soon as we click the accept button, we type the numbers, you know, it's just there. There's no audit trail, there's no journal, no nothing. The automatic budget copy, same thing, still instantaneous. The advantage to the automatic budget copy is it can affect more than one account at a time, whereas that account maintenance, you know, and budget maintenance task that we were in, it's really just one account at a time, so very slow. So this will add a little bit of power to that. So let's see what we can do here. So again, you tell it which one you want. We could choose to make it based on the activity or not. We can make it a percentage change here. So let's say we're going to copy it off the activity from the previous year. We're going to do all 12 periods, but we're expecting some growth. So we're going to put 5% in for growth. We'll pick a rounding number here. So we'll just do, you know, dollars for this case. And then very important, you definitely want to use your account selections here to control what you're getting. And then I'm just going to put in this case, I'll put in the main account 400, which means that it will automatically find all the GL codes starting with 400, as opposed to me going out, you know, spelling it out account by account. And I'm just going to hit proceed here. Boom, it's going to be done. And the only way we'd actually be able to see that would be with an actual budget report. So we'll take a look at budget reports later, but since we're going to look at it later, I'm not going to run it now. But the key thing is there's no audit trail, but it does affect multiple accounts at the same time. And you do have to run the report to kind of verify that. Now, finally, is the budget revision entry. This is what most people use, or a lot of people use, particularly in a multi-user environment. So let's talk about this one. So the budget revision entry, you notice this screen here looks a lot like the automatic budget copy. That's by design, of course. The big difference with this feature is it not only affects multiple accounts at the same time, but it also has an update routine which provides an audit trail for everything that was done. And it has some additional functionality as well. So we'll just do a couple examples here. So we're again kind of picking on the 2025 original budget. We're going to pick the 2024 activity here. We're going to just say copy the amount, and we'll do periods 1 to 12 dollars. We aren't going to add anything to it. We're just going to literally make it the same exact amount. So it's a little different than what we did the last example. We can make it dollars here. We're going to open up these account selections. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and pick the full account number as opposed to using the main account. So first thing too, before I do that, is notice that there's a clear button down here in the lower left. So since this is a data entry, run an update for a journal report and then update this, kind of like an actual transaction, you know, what it's telling us is that there isn't anything in here yet. So once that button's lighted up, it's just kind of a visual indicator that there is something in your entry already. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the revenue accounts here again. And this time I'm going with the full account numbers. Looks like that goes down to about there. And then I'm just going to hit proceed here and let it rip. So now we'll open this guy up, stretch it out here so we can kind of see what we've got. And there it is. It brought in my accounts and it copied the data. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about what we can do in here now. So this is the entry in progress by itself. So one thing I could do is I could add accounts manually in here. So for example, maybe I want the returns and allowances included. So I could hit the 4 here if I knew what it started with, and I could go find the returns and allowances and say, oh, I really did want that one in here, and I could go ahead and put that in here. Now, then I could also just type a number in any of these grid spots that's open. So because this is revenue, if you just type a straight number, it's going to convert it to a negative, assuming you want positive revenue. This is a returns account, so I actually made it be a positive 5,000 to represent a reduction of revenue. All right, so that was intentional. Let's talk about other things we could do here. If I didn't want to keep that account there, let's say, for example, I can just delete that. All right. Let's talk about some of these features and these buttons on the right. What does that do? So let's see here. Let's put in like a number here. So 120,000 in revenue. That notice. Let's say I'm doing the budget. I notice this account doesn't have a budget. We need to have a budget for that, of course. And so now I'm going to go over here into the change budget, and I'm highlighting on the cell that I'm on, and then I can do different things in here. So I can copy it. I can change it by a percent. You know, I can accumulate it by a percentage. I'm going to go with annual budget in this case just to see what I'm doing. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm telling it, hey, my annual budget's 120,000. I need to spread that out. So I'm going to hit proceed, and boom, it just spread my 120,000 out. Now I've got 10,000 per period. So that's just an example of what one of these things will do. And as you can see, there's other little kind of calculation widgets there that you can kind of play with. That's just an example of one of them. Okay, now let's talk about the information zoom. So if I'm on an account here like this, and I come down here, this is the information zoom. So this is based on what we've got the 2025 in here because that's what we selected for our entry. This 24 over here, this is changeable. So I could change this to the revised budget if I wanted to look at it, or anything else. It's just sort of an inquiry window meant to help you if you want to look at information that might help you with what you're doing on the budget screen. So that's a little inquiry thing. Here is your reset row or reset all rows. Again, it's tied to the last time you clicked accept, which in this case is at the bottom of the screen. And then you've got your clear row or clear all rows. So that's what those buttons do. Now, more functionality here that we can still do. So let's say I'm here and I go, great, I got my revenue numbers maybe where I want them. Maybe I'll fix this one up here too, just for grins, and I'll make that an annual amount. But let's say I want a whole nother series here, and I don't really want to go and add one account at a time to get them in here. So what I can do is, if I want a whole nother series, let's say maybe I want let's say the cost of goods sold, that comes next. Let's click here on this icon here. This will take us back to the select accounts. So here I am back at that same screen. I could change what I want to base it off of here, or I can just leave it the same. But what I'm going to do is leave all that the same. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to add another series. So the main series I want to add starts with 450. I believe that's going to be our cost of goods sold. And then I'm going to hit proceed. And notice our clear buttons lighted up now. That's because we have all that other stuff from the revenue in there already. And I'm just going to hit proceed, and boom, it brings in that whole next series. So then I can continue to work until I get, what I want. Now, once we're done and we think we have everything we want here, we'll just show a couple more things. We do have a right click in here as well. So you do have that export to Excel. I'll actually drop this one out into Excel so you can see it. This works, really nice coming out into Excel because it's a grid screen. So grid screen to grid screen works pretty good. And, a reason why that might be valuable to you, we'll talk about importing a little later. Some people actually prefer to manipulate their data in Excel because you have more flexibility even than those little calculation widgets I showed you. You can really, anything you can dream up in Excel, you can do to massage the numbers, and then you can actually import the data right back into this screen. So, and then you could update it. So, so it's worth mentioning. All right. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about updating this. So we have a feature turned on here that's very helpful called Paperless Office. So I'm just going to talk about that briefly so you know what you're about to see. So basically Paperless Office is just a feature that makes PDFs out of things you could normally print. So we're going to print a register here, which is the budget revision register, which will be the thing that updates this entry. And we're going to use Paperless Office here to actually store that journal permanently in perpetuity for as long as we decide we need to keep it. And that's going to provide an extra good audit trail. Naturally, we'll have the journal, we'll have that in our records, but by having the paperless journal, we'll have it even the exact copy of the journal with additional information that we're about to see. So the setting for this is pretty simple. I just created a setting that says I want to save the GL budget revision register and where did I want it, and I told it to automatically create this. So I don't have to tell it, it's just going to do it. Now here we are back at our entry, and if I want to go ahead and finalize my 25 original budget that based on what we're seeing in here, I have to run the register. I can do that one of two ways. I can just click this print button right down here, right from the entry. But let's say I did all this and I went to lunch and I'm conscious of security, so I, closed my screen. I could also run that right from the menu here, the budget revision register. Okay, so either way, however you like to do it, I'm going to do it from the entry. So with the paperless office turned on, I don't care what the printer says. I can print this if I want to, but I pretty much can ignore that right now. I'm just going to hit the print button and I'm going to let paperless office do its job. And what that's going to do is it's going to open this up in Adobe. So let me see if I can make that a little bigger for you guys. It doesn't have the greatest graphics with this VM that I'm on, so apologize. But here's the key thing. The 400.01.01 is a great example. It says here was what this budget was across the top and all the periods before this got changed. Here's what the amount it was changed by, and here's where it ended up. Okay, and if we went to the end of this thing, it's going to tell me exactly when this happened, you know, what the GL date was. We don't necessarily care about that as much. It's going to tell me who did it. Now, if I'm the person posting this, I already know all that because I did it. So I'll close this and we'll say yes, I'm going to update that. Now, if I wanted to go tweak it some more, I'd say no and go work on it. Now we're just going to say after the fact, I'm person B now, and I want to know, hey, my original budget got whacked. What happened to it? I can come in here to the paperless office, go look at my journal and register viewer, and you know, I can filter this. I don't have very much in here, so we're not going to need to filter it. But it's going to tell me what happened. It's the budget revision register. When did it get created? Was it updated or not? So you can create the register without updating it. And if I want to actually recall that, then all I have to do is click on it, and I can see all that information right there. So now we know exactly what happened, when it happened, you know, even what the budget was before it was changed. So that can be really helpful in a multi-user environment. Okay, that's my 2 cents on paperless office and using the budget revision register. All right, now we're going to take a look at a couple reports. We can't talk about budgeting without budget reports. So over here on the general ledger, let's shrink up some of these menus. It's getting a little busy. So standard Sage, all the modules have a reports menu. So we're going to go into here. And then we have our budget and history report. So we'll take a look at this one. Now this one, you can do zeros. You can kind of see what the options are. This one I like because it does let you do actual postings and budgets. So we'll just, we'll put this in here for our little count range that we've got. And we'll take a look at this guy. Whoops, wrong box. Yeah, that should be good enough. All right, so let's take a quick look at this one. So there you go. Now, I don't love the layout of this one. Some people prefer it, some people don't. It's got the years across the top and the periods down the side, but it does allow you to have actual along with your budget data. That's something that not all the budget reports allow. As long as we're in the general ledger reports, we might as well show you the one that's right below it. So very similar setup on the screen, almost identical. And in this case, I'm just going to run this for the 450 series just for grins to change it up slightly. And we'll take a look at this one. Now this one, very similar screen setup, but the layout is of course left to right. So I personally prefer that. Of course, you can control what budget or actuals you're seeing there. So that kind of gives you two different layouts of similar type of information. Now, in the budgeting menu itself, we also have a couple reports. So the budget report, this only sees budget data, does not see actuals. So we'll take a quick gander in here. Now notice this one, I actually saved it. So don't forget you can do that. There's a standard, everybody has the standard. What I did there is I just put in my account range like that, and I hit the save button and I gave it this name. Okay, so that's another really cool feature in Sage that, you know, can give you multiple versions of the report, so you can zero in on what you need really quickly if it's something you're going to use more than once. So there's the basic budget report. Of course, it's laid out left to right, kind of similar to the last one, only it doesn't allow actuals. Okay, now here's something fun. Let's try this. There's something that some people don't know about, and it's kind of fun to talk about with budgeting. So let's just dive into this little unknown, seldom known feature. So in the general ledger, in the setup options, there are these roll-ups feature. Okay, so whereas your chart of accounts has a structure, assets equals liabilities, you've got the income statement, all that kind of good stuff, the accounting equation we all know near and dear, the debits and the credits. And if your chart of accounts is a well-organized, piece of artwork that I know all of you have, and it's nice and clean and it's really tight, many times that's all you need. But what I'm going to show you here is what I would call kind of ad hoc reporting, which is completely outside the structure of the chart of accounts, but may be helpful in some situations with budgeting. So what I've done here is I've labeled one of these roll-up codes manager, just literally made it up. I decided I wanted to make a roll-up called manager because I want to track GL account activities and possibly budgets by manager, not just by GL account. Completely outside the structure of the chart of accounts. So here, then what I did is I just went down to the roll-up code maintenance under the GL setup. That label manager shows up here automatically because I defined it in the options, and I just added 3 managers, Bob, Mary, Sue, and I could keep going. So I added Bob, Mary, and Sue. Then what I did is I went over to account maintenance, and I just nilly-willy assigned, and this wouldn't be nilly-willy in the real world, but I assigned those managers to particular accounts that I wanted to be able to do some budget reporting for. So here's Bob on this one, and Mary's on this one, here's Sue, and then there's Bob again. I think maybe that's all I did, just real simple. All right, so now when I go back to my budget report, that roll-up code manager is down here, and there's a few more things down there too. So there's manager, and if I want to, I could pick Bob, and then let's just see if we can get a budget report for Bob. So whatever Bob's name's on, whoop, we're not getting it. Manager, let's see here. Nothing like live TV. Let's try him again. And it could be we don't have accounts with budgets in them. So we might actually, maybe we'll try Mary just to see what happens. I'm not getting it, but I think you get the idea there. That's how it's supposed to work. Sorry, I'm not quite. Oh, tell you what, I know what it is. Hold on. Live TV. I was using a custom setting. Sometimes those don't work with these things. So let's try this again here. Maybe that's what it was. I had that as my default and I tripped myself probably. One more try. And let's take this revised out of here because we've been focusing on the original. I thought we had numbers in there. And here it is. We did get something. Now, we forgot to get to the account range we wanted. So we'd have to get kind of back here to where the actual numbers were because the balance sheet accounts go first. But as you can see, we do have some budget data in here once we get into the income statement. So if you don't use the wrong report setting, that works fine. All right. Now, next report, kind of a fun one, is we've got the general ledger graphics. So it isn't the best graphics, I'll be the first to admit, but this is the only stock report in Sage 100 that I know of that's ever been created that actually shows any kind of graphics. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have some fun with this one. We're going to make it an income graph. We're going to do a line chart, and we're going to try to get some budget data in here. So we're going to go 2025. Here's where we can pick our budget. We'll do the original, and then maybe we'll pick a couple other things like our 2024. We can do actuals in here. So that would be interesting to see. I think I might have written my budget. Okay, so actuals. Oh, and then let's do, we'll do the revised budget. Why not? We'll make this the revised. Okay, so I don't love the way that Sage kind of laid that screen out. It's kind of tight, but there it is. We've got the 2025 original, the actual postings, as well as our revised budget. And since we've picked income up here, we shouldn't necessarily need to put in account ranges. It should pick that up based on the account type. And we're just going to hit preview, kind of see what we get. So this is Sage idea of a chart. It's really hard to read because the lines are so thin, but there is a yellow line up here representing the revised budget. And then the 2024 actual and 2025 original budget are almost on top of each other, probably because we copied them. But this does give you a visual graphic as opposed to just straight numbers. And it's the only place in Sage, I think, that does that. So there's that. Now for something more, probably more interesting for you accounting types, let's talk about financial reports with budget data. All right, so let's do that next. So under the general ledger, for you accounting types, we have the financial reports. You probably know this near and dear. System comes with these 3 reports, which everybody has, of course. So I could create my own group if I wanted for budgets, or I could even have a year-end group to put this into. I'm not going to create a group, but I just want to mention it. So we're going to create a new financial report that's got budget data in it. So we're going to hit this new financial report button, and we're going to try to build this out. And we'll see here. We'll just call this our budget report. Why not? I'm going to put my caps on. All right, there's a budget report, and we're going to make this one an income statement. Income statement, you could append that report title to make it more informative. I would probably, make it a little nicer than that. If you have different report groups, this is where you tell it which one it's going to be in. So we're going to stay in standard. And then, here we're going to tell it what kind of type that we want. So notice there's the manager there, but I'm going to do a combined statement for now. And then this is the key step right here. What column data format do we want? So we're going to want to pick something that has a budget. So let's see here. Let's do, I'm looking for something with maybe some year-to-date in it. But this one will work right here. This one will work right here. That's got a budget and a variance in it. And then we'll tell it we want both year-to-date and year-to-date, period-to-date and year-to-date. Your decimal settings, nothing new there. Do you want the GL accounts or not? So completely optional. And look, here's where you can pick your budget. So again, it's looking for those budget codes we talked about. So there's my 2025. Footnotes, if you want to do footnotes. And then we can do account ranges. We don't necessarily need to do that. We could even have it set, if we check this box, to tell it what accounts we want to see. So I'm just gonna let it do the normal thing. It knows what the income statement accounts are by definition. So there we are. And then we're gonna go ahead and run this and test it out. So that didn't take very long to make that. And I'm gonna hit proceed. And we're in 2025 of May with this demo data. So we're gonna go ahead and preview this so we can see it and kind of see what we got. And there it is. So probably in less than 5 minutes, I click through there and I've got a nice little income statement showing my budgets and my variances, out of the can reporting, basically. Okay, so that's pretty good. We like that. Now, another thing I'm going to show you on reporting, and this is a little less friendly, I'd say, but it's still good to point it out. So every module in Sage has this Explore thing in it, this Explore menu. So what it shows, of course, is dependent upon the module. So in the GL, there is one of these that shows budget information. So I'm just going to show you this real quick. So different information in here. It's a little clunky. I'm just going to show you a few things. So if I want to see budget information in here, one thing I might want to know is what budget I'm actually looking at. So if you go over these column settings and you right click, you can actually add that budget code by just checking it. So once I'm in there, I can kind of start filtering it. I can tell it I want only the original budget, for example, and I can kind of see, you know, what we're getting here. I don't find this terribly useful, but it is a way to see the budget information, and you might have a better use for it than what I'm seeing. One thing I do like from here is that I click on the task down here and I'm on a particular budget here and I see, you know, maybe I want to work on that. I could go right into the account maintenance or the budget maintenance for that, or straight into budget revision entry if I want to start working on that account. So, but that's a quick look at the BIE. There is a view there that has budget information. And you would want to filter this probably by year too. So if I checked 2025, then I'm seeing, you know, what I'm looking at. But you can't really write data from here, so it's kind of a look only. Play around with that if you wish. Now, another really popular way for displaying budget information in financial reports isn't just the built-in reports or the financial reports, but Sage Intelligence. So let's take a quick look at Sage Intelligence. So Sage Intelligence is right up here on the menu. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I put in the right demo data here. Date. All right, so Sage Intelligence is a Excel-based report writer for Sage 100. So if anybody isn't familiar with this, that's part of why we're putting it in your demo. So you know, you have to buy you know, some licenses to this. You need something called the report manager, which is this interface I'm in. You need something called the designer, which is the ability to actually create these reports from scratch. And so what I'm going to show you is something that I've pre-built for this presentation. So there's lots of free reports that come with the system also, but this Bruce's reports folder is the one where I've got some of the ones that I made. And then we're going to go ahead and run this GL budget demo report. Okay, so we're just going to hit the run button here and let this populate out into Excel. So it's going out into Sage right now and it's finding all the information that this report has designed into it. And it's going to open Excel for us and we're going to basically see some information. And a lot of people build out their financial reports or their budget reports in Sage Intelligence entirely. They don't even mess with those stock reports or the financials. Some people really prefer this. The drawback is you do have to create them the first time. So there's that. But once they're built, they're there. Typically, these survive upgrades pretty well as well. So let's go ahead and blow this guy up. It looks like it's done. Okay, so we're really two tabs in here that I wanted to focus on for today, just on the budgets real quick like. So here's here's an Excel-based income statement that I built. As you can see, we've got budget information over here. So we'll just take a look here. The way this one works, if we look at the formula for this, is it just says, hey, go look in cell A9, and that's where I have the main GL code. Look over there, get my GL code. Go ahead and look in B3 for the year, look in B4 for the period, and then, you know, look in B5 for the budget code and give me the number. Now, there's a lot of other type of things we can do, but that's a really basic scenario. So in this scenario, if I change the period here, it should change the figures on both of those. So if I change this to period 4, for example, now this is dynamic and it's updated all my information. Now over here, I've got one that's detailed budget. So this one's driven by main account. So it's summarizing it at the main account level. This one here is just an example showing that you can get right down to the nitty-gritty details. So in this one, we're looking at literally account level detail, and this one's set up to be more of the start of a variance explanation. So over here, we can see that, you know, our sales went way up. We've got $109,000 positive variance. That's a good thing. And then the explanation was that Sue closed a big deal that wasn't in our budget, and that's why it was so much higher. So lots more you can do with Sage Intelligence. These were built completely from scratch with nothing. There's also kind of, you know, things you can drag out, but this is not a Sage Intelligence class. So we won't bother saving that. Just the point is that Sage Intelligence is a very effective means of working with your budget data. Okay, now that we've talked about the setups and some of the bells and the whistles, the features and the budget revision and reporting, now let's take it to one more section here, and that is, how do we automate some of this? How do we, some of those features are great, but they're kind of onesie twosies. It would take me a lifetime to key in on my budget. So how do we import budgets? There's really two ways, and we're going to start with what I would say is the preferred method, and that is with the Visual Integrator. So with the Visual Integrator, the approach that we're going to take is we're going to import to the budget revision entry, just like we saw when we used it to produce a budget and ran the update. We're gonna do the same thing, only we're going to import it straight in from there. So we're going to talk about how this would work. So Visual Integrator is a module that you can buy. Many systems, I would say more than maybe even most systems, come with it. If you don't have it, you can buy it. So in here is a bunch of import jobs that I have created. So they don't come with any. You have to create these VI jobs. So see your Sage 100 consultant at SWK to help you with this if you want training on how to do it, or if you want assistance with building any actual jobs. So here's an example of our budget import job. We'll just take a look at this guy. So I came in, I gave it a name. I told it what table this goes to, which is the budget revision. And I gave it a little description. I've got a file out here that we're going to use that has the data in it. We'll take a look at that in a minute. And then here's kind of the business end of this thing. It just says, what does it do? It looks out at it needs a fiscal year. It needs to know the accounts, the budget code, and the amounts. So we'll see that runt stands for runtime assign. That means when I run this import, I'm going to tell it what I want the year to be. And the same thing with the budget code. I'm going to tell it what budget code I want it to be. So if you're going to import budgets, the budget code has to exist first. So in this case, we're going to import original. We know it's already there. But if I'm trying to import plan B, let's say, and I don't have that created in the budget code, I'll have to do that first. It will not know what it is. Now I'm going to kind of cruise out here to my Windows Explorer, and I'm going to show you this file just so you can see what's really going on. So here's my Excel template. Now the actual import file is a CSV. So I'm opening up the Excel template because once a file is a CSV, a comma delimited file, it can change the data. It frequently will remove leading zeros and things like that. So you're going to have to trust me that this is what's in it. So here I have my Excel template. This just works right with that import job. So when it said look in column 1 for the account key, this is exactly what it's doing. So there it is. There's my data in Excel. Now the advantage to doing this in Excel like this is I could come up with any number of formulas, scenarios. I could do all kinds of math to this that's pretty ad hoc, way outside of all those little widgets we saw. So I could really work up my budget the way I really want it in Excel. And a lot of people prefer that. Now, something to keep in mind is if you're going to import your budget based on things you did in Excel, what we're about to do, you cannot import formulas. So if you're going to do your import, it means you may have to copy your data someplace and paste the values to be able to have it to be importable. So just keep that in mind. So here's what we're going to be looking for when we get this into the budget revision entry. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And then all I did is paste that into here. Now, there's different ways of running imports. So we're going to go ahead and pull this guy up. And, it's pointed to the right file already. So what we're going to do is just say accept. We're going to run this job. So before we run this job, it's good practice to make sure that the data entry area that you're importing to is clear. So let's hit no on that for a minute. Let's do good practice and go to budget revision entry and make sure that there isn't an entry here already. If there was an entry here already, we would be appending that entry. We would not be putting in a nice clean new one. So here we know it's empty because the clear button is not lighted up. Coast is clear. Okay, let's run this bad boy now. Just going to click accept and kick it off. And here is my runtime thing. It says, what is the year? And then it needs to know what budget code I want. So it's important to put this in caps, just like it is in the setup. So I'm going to go ahead and test my import, and I'm going to tell it to test all my records. This is optional, but a really good idea if you're going to import your data. All right, so we're going to go ahead and look at this log, and we're going to talk about the import log. So this is what we want to see. It's all black. We don't see red or blue or any other colors than black. That's the ideal scenario. So if we saw something that failed, it would be in red or blue, and then it would tell us why it failed. So we're going to drill into a record and give you an example. If I tried to import a budget for a GL account that was either didn't exist or maybe it was status inactive or something, typically it would fail your import, and it would tell you, instead of passing it, it would say GL account not on file, something like that. Or fiscal year 2025 doesn't exist yet, that type of thing, in which case I'd have to go create it. So this is what it should look like when it's good, and you can see all the numbers are there. All right, now it tested good. I'm going to go ahead and hit accept, and I'm going to let it go in. It tells me it went in. We're not going to bother looking at the log again. We're going to go straight over to our entry now and see if it's there. So here's our budget revision entry, and if we pop this guy open, there's our entry. Now I could do whatever else I needed to do to it, just like I showed you before, but it may be that that is the most efficient way of actually getting this all in efficiently. Now, if I want to go ahead and update this, we know what to do. We just click the print button there, and it will update it. So I'm going to actually clear this because I don't want to update it, but that's how easy it is. I'm just going to clear that, and that takes it out like it never happened. All right, now heading toward the finish line here is importing with GL Exchange. Now, not everybody owns the Visual Integrator module, but everybody who has Sage has a GL module, and everybody has the GL Exchange. So this is what we call a legacy feature that has been around pretty much since Sage was invented, which used to be called Mass 90 for those of you who don't know. So we're going to talk about GL Exchange. Now, the GL Exchange works a little different. It will import a budget for us, but it doesn't import it to the budget revision entry. It goes straight into the budget. So key difference, and there's no way to change that. That's how it's wired, and that's the way VI works, and that's just the difference. So we're going to come into GL Exchange, and we're going to build a setting that we're going to be able to use to import our budget, and then we're going to hopefully take a look at the budget and see if it worked. All right, so what we're going to do is do a new Exchange setting, and we're going to go through this wizard and try to build a GL Exchange import for budgets. And as you can see, GL Exchange can also export data. There's lots better ways of getting data out of Sage besides GL Exchange, but you can use it to export data. Here we're going to see what it is we're trying to import. And in this case, it's pretty obvious that the one that says budgets on it is the one we're going to want. But notice you can import transactions or even accounts. Here we're going to need to give this a name. So we're just going to call it 2025 original because we're doing the 2025 original budget. And let's go ahead and give that description down here as well. Which budget do we want to import? Anybody have a guess? It's going to be the original. What fiscal year? 2025. Pretty straightforward so far. When do you want to exclude the expired accounts? So make a choice here. So you have a setting on each account as to whether or not it's expired. I'm going to say never, meaning if I'm importing it, if I have an account on my spreadsheet that has a budget and I want it in, it better bring it in. I don't care if the account's expired. Here I could choose to limit the accounts. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to do a different range this time. We'll do the 525 range up to the 525. So that's what we're going to allow to come in. And here we're going to make a choice of the file type. CSV is the most common, just like the Visual Integrator. And here we have to point it to a file just like we did with the Visual Integrator. The file layouts are actually extremely similar, but this one's actually in a different directory. So let me go find that guy real quick. All right, there it is. We'll hit next. And then you've got this last screen that talks about the file format. And you just need to read the note here to decide which to do. Mine is 9 or fewer characters in my chart of accounts, so I have the alternate is my correct choice. And that's it. We'll hit finish, and now we've got a setting. Now before I run that, I'm going to see if I can go find that file and just show you how much it looked like the other one. If I had more time, I could almost do it with the same file. So here's the GL Exchange template. Notice how similar that is to the other one. It's literally the same information. It's the same template. I just happen to have it in a separate file. All right, so here it is, 2025 original, and we're going to hit proceed and say yes. Now this one does a check automatically, so we'll go ahead and see what this says when it says it checked it. It's not quite the same as VI. You can see all it's doing is saying is that it skipped it or not. There's no real reading of the file to tell you what it's going to do. And then it's going to ask me if I want to go ahead and import that. And it did. Okay, so at that point, I would have to run my budget report to see it. So we'll just go ahead and grab it. And I think that was the actual range we ran it for. So we'll just see if this looks like our numbers. So we'll blow that guy up, and maybe I'll open up that Excel file one more time and see if it looks like that's what we got. So let's see if we can put these kind of side by side here. Yep, looks like that's what we got. So it appears to have worked. Our data came in, it matches exactly what our file said. Okay, so that is really my tour of budgeting features right from the setup all the way through kind of the feature set. I guess I'm going to turn it back over to you, Jolene, to see if there's any questions or anything like that.
Thanks, Bruce. We'll now open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please enter them into the question section of your GoToWebinar, and we'll give that a minute in case any come through. And just a reminder, everyone, we do have a subject matter expert here. This is a great opportunity to have your questions answered in real time. And we do have one that came through, Bruce. Where can I go to find more information on Sage 100 budgeting tools?
Well, you could use your, I guess you'd have to go to the Sage knowledge base, or the Sage U might have some stuff on it. There's always the help within your Sage itself. So those are the two primary resources I would say would be Sage U. So, and you can sign up for classes there. Some of them are on demand, kind of like something like this where it would be pre-recorded and you can kind of watch it. And then the other thing is probably the help screen. So, you know, and the help is, you know, sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not helpful. So for example, here's a budget report screen. No idea what this is going to say, but if I click down here, every screen has this little help on it, and you can do about this window, and you can get information about the various fields in a particular screen that you're in. So this might take a minute to populate. So this one here, you know, would be talking about this. So maybe if you were more in one of those calculation widgets and you want help on that, try hitting the help button there. But those are the primary two areas. There's not a lot in the what's new stuff that Sage puts out because the budgeting stuff is so old, hasn't been, you know, rewritten anytime recently. It's kind of the same feature set. It's been around for a few years, so there's nothing new documentation wise that I could send to you, but I'd say Sage U and the help menu in Sage.
Great. And we have another. Where can I find the templates?
The templates you do not find, they are created. So let me talk about that a little bit. So, and I'm going to use the Visual Integrator example, although it just would apply to really the GL Exchange as well. So, you know, when I wanted to import this, you know, I started by saying, okay, where does it need to go? And the budget revision is the where. So once I told it that, it has all of these fields over here. It already knows. It says, here's what you have to work with. And what I did is I said, okay, well, you know, which of these fields applies to me? And pretty much all of them do, because I wanted to import all but the 13th period. So I moved these over here. And then the ones in blue are required fields. So when I built my import template, I basically said, well, here's the field list on the left. So that's what I've got to have. And then I've just got to get the order right. So I literally just created Excel from scratch. That one's under VI. And I literally just popped open Excel and started typing. And I said, okay, it wants the account number and that's one thing it wants. So I said, okay, I'm going to call that account key. And I just went back and forth and said, okay, your account key. Now the fiscal year here, I didn't have a column for that because when I double click this, you know, here's where I tell it what I want it to do. Most of the time you're going to replace it from the spreadsheet. But in this case, I did a runtime assign, meaning I want to be able to tell you at the time that I'm running it what the year should be. I could have also fixed it. So literally I just typed it. It didn't get created. That's literally the answer. It didn't exist. You can't get it from Sage. It doesn't exist. It doesn't come with the system. Just like the VI job, the template itself had to be created from scratch.
Perfect. And we have one more. Where do you find the data tables to get the fields that are available?
That is an excellent question. I almost went there on the last question, but I didn't want to get over techie, not knowing exactly who all is on this call. But that's an excellent question, and it's right at the heart of the matter. So let me show you. So let's see here. Down here, if I scroll down in the current view that I have, there is resources here. Okay, so I'm going to click resources. And under resources, if I scroll down, there's file layouts and program information. So if I click that guy, we'll see what happens here. See if it'll open up for me. This is all web browser based now. And it's slowly but surely coming. And then here's my file layouts. So, and then you can shrink these down. So here's literally, this is a very common thing that I do when I'm building VI jobs. So you can shrink these down, and then here's your modules. So in this case, I'll go to General Ledger, and then here's all the table names. So we'll go down to GL Budget Revision, okay? And then we'll click on that, and then let's talk about how to read this, okay? So you can kind of see here's the column names down the left, pretty straightforward there. This column that says ML means length. I don't know why they use the M, but it's length. So these characters here are how long it can be. So there's the budget code. It's telling you that the budget code can be no more than 10 characters. And then it's got the dollars. So now up here, right here where it says K primary, this is basically saying what the required fields are for this import, meaning you must provide the fiscal year, you must provide the account key, and you must provide the budget code. Now, from a practical standpoint, you also need to provide at least one period with a number, but Sage doesn't even consider that required. Of course, it's required because you don't have anything without at least one number. But that's telling me that those are required, and here's all my field lengths. These are telling me over here in the description kind of what it's doing. So these are amounts, and these are layouts, meaning it's telling me this is masked for dollars. So that's just telling me that it's pulling the dollars. Now to translate that back, whoops, if I go to my import job, budget revision, back over here, that is why the fiscal year account key and budget code are in blue. That is Visual Integrator's code or color code for telling you those are required fields. So here looking at my data map, same thing. So that's how it works. This is the file layout that you'd be looking at.
Perfect. Do we have one more? How do I access the webinar recording? The recorded webinar link will be sent out by end of day tomorrow to all attendees and those who registered but were not able to attend. Perfect. And I'll take back the screen to wrap up the webinar. If you give me 1 minute. Perfect. Thank you so much, Bruce, for your informative presentation and for taking the time to be here today. And thank you everyone for attending our webinar. Have a wonderful rest of your day.